You say you don't tell love, you feel love, but how am I to know if you never say it?
It's just assumed, it's just there.
Even so, just to help me, please say it.
I can't now, it wouldn't mean anything.
Why not?
I'd only be saying it because you asked me to say it.
I don't mind.
This is childish, Grace.
Say it!
Why are you doing this? Why are you making everything into a problem? This isn't anything to do with me. This is your problem.
Don't ever say that to me again. You're part of this, you're involved, whether you like it or not.
That was a clip from Hope Gap, a new British drama which is out in cinemas and on Curzon Home Cinema from next Friday. It stars Bill Nighy and Annette Bening, who I'm thrilled to say joins me now from over in California. Hello and welcome, Annette.
Hi, thank you, Sanjeev. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Hope Gap, could you set the scene for us, who you play and how she fits into the story?
It's a contemporary, pretty much contemporary story of a married couple, 30 years of marriage, and the husband wants to leave his wife, and it's the story of the two of them and their adult son. Bill Nighy wrote and directed it, and in the story, in his own life, he was the son. It was a play first, which he did a number of times, and then converted it to a screenplay, wanted to direct it himself, and that's what we did.
How did it find its way to you? And was there something in the script? Was there a moment in the script that drew you to it?
That's a good question. I liked the writing very much. I thought it was original. There's a lot of stories about people breaking up, obviously, but this one had its own nature to it, which I found compelling. I was also very worried about the amount of language that was in it, just the amount of dialogue. And when I first read it, Bill Nighy wrote me a very nice letter. I read the letter, I read the script, and he had said that it was about his own life, and I thought I couldn't make it work as a film because I thought there was just too much to say. So I didn't want to be rude and say that to him because I thought, well, he's such a good writer, he's such an established person, this is his life. I didn't want to be arrogant and say, sorry, I just think it's too, So I just said no, I passed on doing it. And then about a week later, I thought to myself that it was so stupid. Why did I do that? That is just ridiculous. Of course you can call this man and have a conversation with him. So that's what I did. I just called him up and said, Bill, I'm really sorry, but this is how I feel. And he was just effusive. He said, don't worry. Of course we can talk about these things. And of course I'm not offended. And I had never met him, so I didn't know what he was like. Well, he's the most gregarious. I was surprised by that, I guess because of the film being so serious. But he's chatty and gregarious and charming and, of course, smart and practical and all of those things. So then we agreed to meet, and then we just got on very well. So it was a wonderful process working with him, getting to know him, becoming a friend, and entering this very intimate part of his life, which he was writing about in such a personal way.
The writing's really interesting because it's incredibly real and the relationships feel very real. They don't feel like movie relationships. And yet there's a lot of poetry. I mean, there's poetry in the writing. I mean, there's references directly to poetry as well. There's that beautiful Rossetti poem that you mention in the film as well. There's a lot of that kind of lyrical quality to it, but without it feeling kind of that it's unreal and made up somehow.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a great compliment. That's due to Bill and his passion about the woman, his mother, who he's writing about, and how this became a way of her surviving in the story was through these poems, and that they can be a way of identifying and understanding ourselves. The idea that so many people have gone through similar experiences and written about them beautifully is a very reassuring thing. And I really credit him with weaving that in the way that he did.
You're effectively playing his mother, which I guess you did most recently in 20th Century Women. You were playing the writer-director's mother.
Uh-huh.
Is there any particular research or preparation that you did to play Grace?
The main, I guess, research. I did a lot of poetry reading myself, and she's a very, very devout Catholic, and I think that was a huge part of the story. I mean, it is in the writing as well, but also as a way of understanding her. That was something I read quite a bit about and made sure and went to some masses, but mainly talking to Bill because of the nature of that experience that he had, and of course this is all from his point of view. It's funny though, now that I think of it, every time that I've played someone, I mean, generally, whether you're doing a play or a film and the writer is there, you're playing some aspect either of them or someone in their life. So that relationship with the writer becomes very, very intimate. And you are acting out some aspect of their experience that is very, very obviously meaningful to them. That's why they're writing about it. So this relationship between the writer and the actor is one of the most delightful, that's not quite the right word, but meaningful, pungent, interesting parts of acting, is this relationship that you then find with the writer, and in this case, the writer-director. So we talked about his mother a lot, and his father, and his own experience, and that was very satisfying and interesting. But when I think about other things I've done from when I was young and I was doing plays and I was working with writers, and we would all talk endlessly because they were fascinated by the experience of having something acted out. And it's one of the delightful collaborations in the work that I do.
But I just wondered whether there's extra pressure to get it right, to get the nuances. Do you keep kind of looking back at the writer, and in this case director as well, saying, is that right?
Yes, it's funny. I'm remembering something, I think it was Alec Guinness said in one of his books, he said something about how whenever you're playing a live person, no matter if they're a villain or a hero, they're always thrilled. Thrilled by whatever you do. Now, in this case, of course, his mother isn't around. When we sat down to rehearse and we started going through it, we had quite a bit of rehearsal compared to some things I've done. And Bill Nicholson sat down with me and Bill Nighy and Josh O'Connor, but then when Josh wasn't there and we were playing the scenes just between the two of us, Bill Nicholson had very strong ideas about what was happening. And it became very clear that both Bill Nighy and I were completely open to him showing us what he was envisioning. And so, in fact, he would act out the scenes for us in playing both parts.
Right.
And it was fantastic. I've never experienced that before, quite like that. I've kind of gone through bits and pieces of that sort of thing where someone's acting something out for you, but this was so thorough. And we both were enjoying it so much, what he was doing, and it was incredibly helpful. And my memory of it is that then when we started to then do it ourselves, he was quite hands-off. So he then didn't try to get in and sort of control it too much. I certainly felt that. I felt a certain freedom then that I felt like if I was on the right track, I was, and if I wasn't, he would let me know.
That's quite interesting because normally, certainly in the situations I've been in, a director acting it out is the most annoying thing.
Exactly.
That could happen.
I know.
With someone saying, hey, do it like this. And you go, well, what am I doing here?
But in a way, he wasn't saying do it like this. In a way, what he was illustrating was the moments, how they hit them. I remember Milos Forman also sort of not teaching, but in other words, the director can describe what's in their head, right? We've all been through that. When they're kind of intellectualizing and describing a moment and how they see it. And that can be a bit helpful, and then you sort of have to translate it in your own brain. In this case, it sort of skips that step. And so he's, in a sort of broad strokes, indicating moments and what are key moments and when someone is surprised, when someone is having any number of reactions. So it ended up being really helpful. And And Bill Nighy was also so completely on board with it that we ended up, I mean, I was in hysterics, actually. I thought it was so funny.
You mentioned that there was a week of rehearsal. I mean, it is essentially a three-hander between yourself, Bill Nighy, and Josh O'Connor. So the chemistry becomes even more important than it would do in a larger ensemble. So did you know each other beforehand? Was there a fast track to the chemistry? Did you go out for dinner? Or...
We didn't know each other before, and we didn't socialize that much, mainly because we were all so busy. And once we got into the shooting, the days were very long, and we had long commutes, so it was very hard to socialize. We got on extremely well. It's very serious, so there are times when I would just sort of go off and sit by myself. But we did a lot of socializing and chatting while we were working. And Bill Nighy is a delightful man, as everyone in England already knows, and is just incredibly congenial to everyone, and is always up for a conversation and a good laugh. So that was all very easy.
Are you somebody who stays in the accent all day, or do you have friends who kind of stay in it from the time they arrive on set until they leave? So across lunch, they kind of stay in it.
I find that embarrassing. I can't do that. I know
Neither
there are
can
some
I.
people. Yeah, I mean, I know some people do that, and I sort of admire it. I think it takes guts. I don't have that kind of courage. I'm much more chicken. So no, I don't. I don't do that. Even if it's a good idea, I never have been able to.
Now, of course, as you know, I kind of interviewed your husband, Mr. Warren Husband Beatty, who charmed the pants off me, and I like to think that maybe I charmed a shoe off him or something. But you've been married for about the same length of time as Grace and Edward, and I was just wondering whether parts like this make you reflect upon your own life, your own marriage. I mean, presumably thinking how lucky you are in comparison. I mean, both of you got on the right train, so that makes a big difference, doesn't it? But does it make you reflect, or do you just keep it to...
You know, as an actor, whatever you're doing, you are reflecting on your own life. And everything has that layer to it, whatever role you play. But it actually just becomes this sort of outgrowth because it's an imaginative leap. And so, in a way, I suppose one could think of it as being an extension of oneself. And it's a great gift in that way, that we get to use our imaginative, souls and spirits and intellects to extend ourselves into this other story, which is not, in fact, what we're living. But we try to imbue ourselves inside of those circumstances so completely that it's happening intuitively, that the emotional responses are happening that in some way maybe we would have if we were actually in that circumstance. Right. So, but yeah, every time I'm working, I'm thinking, oh yeah, how is this like me, not like me? What do I relate to? What have I experienced? What have I never experienced that this person is going through?
Sure. Finally, it's set in Seaford, which is on the south coast of England, midway between Eastbourne and Brighton. Did you, during that time, develop any fondness for British seaside cuisine? Fish and chips, cockles and winkles, potted shrimp?
Absolutely. But that area, see, everyone in England knows that area because of the Seven Sisters very well. But I love fish and chips. I went to Whitby.
Oh, wow.
I went to Whitby when we were up in the north, and I took one of my day trips. I went to Whitby. Oh, my God. It was so fantastic. And the fish and chips there, beyond. In fact, I should remember the name of the restaurant because I think it's very famous, but I don't remember the name.
We're going to adopt you. You realise this.
Oh, good. I think I need a new country right about this time.
And what's next for you?
Death on the Nile.
Ah, the Kenneth Branagh Return of the Moustache. Death on the Nile.
Yes, and after that, I haven't made anything, so I may just fade into the distance.
No, don't fade into the distance. Come over here and I'll buy you some fish and chips.
All right, that's a deal.
Annette Bening, thank you so much for your time and best wishes to you.
Thank you. This was really fun. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.